Mr. Mayor, all present with the exception of Councilor Johnson, who's going to be a little late.
Thank you. Anything on the consent calendar? Councilors? Any particular agenda item that you have any question on, other than the consent calendar? Anything for council business? I have one item to report on. Councilor Bacon has an item that she wants to talk to you about. Anybody else? City Attorney? For sure?
No one's going to.
I'm relatively sure.
Oh, okay, all right. All right. And with that, thank you. We nothing else for council business. Then let's move on to our committee reports for this evening. Thank you, those the chairs of the advisory bodies that are here to report on what's going on. I sincerely appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to begin with the Affordable Housing Commission. And Mr. Brown, are you going to give us an update?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I'm just going to read through it so I don't
Please
mess it up.
identify yourself.
Oh, sorry. Stuart Brown, Affordable Housing Commission.
Thank you.
I'll just read through it and kind of hit the high notes. First of all, the NOFA, also known as Notice of Funds Availability, that was posted is now closed and there were no takers. We've learned that it's a lot harder to loan money out than give it away. So the prior grant that was issued, which we call the mini grant, that's a cooperative project with Habitat for Humanity, is going really well. This is where the commission matched funds with Habitat to provide small, what we call mini grants, which are often for urgent needs in manufactured homes, particularly in the parks, for repairs on these mobile homes. The intention was to fill this gap between what the large CBDG grant can fill. Usually it's for older homes beneath 1976. And we want to protect and preserve those as well, and there are quite a few of them. Habitat provided its periodic reporting, and we have helped 8 families, and there's one additional family request that's pending, and there are still combined resources available in that small fund. To date, we've spent about $17,000 helping these families with urgent needs, which would include ADA ramps, some roofing repairs, and some very vital repairs that will help these folks stay in their homes. Quick update on the CBDG grant, which is the larger grant, the $400,000 grant that's administered through Yamhill County Housing Authority. We've helped 17 residents or families and have helped with a total of about $192,000 now that's expected to be spent through June of this coming year, this year.
What was the grant amount?
$400,000.
$400,000, thank you.
And a good chunk of that goes to administration, but still the majority of it goes to help families in Newberg. Some of the highlights of those projects are a couple of new roofs, more ADA ramps, window replacements, electrical repairs, and at the current pace we should be able to utilize 100% of the funds by the deadline, which is April of 2019. Quick update on the Housing Newberg group, which you all know the outcome of that. 9 recommendations were made to council. You guys, everybody approved 4 to be focused on. So there's a new charge for the commission and for staff. I don't know that I need to review all those 4 things probably, right? But we did discuss a couple of them, which are the, at the last meeting, which is the accessory dwelling units and the missing middle, which is duplexes and higher density and corner lots. We reviewed the impact of these initiatives on our commission and the possible need now to officially expand the commission's scope or size and the leadership structure of our commission. We understand that any official change in the scope or structure of our commission would need to be approved by council, and a proposal on that may be forthcoming with the intention of hopefully assisting staff in their new charge with these 4 new initiatives. We reviewed recently Senate Bill 1051, which, as you may know, is the inclusionary bill for affordable and low-income housing, and the potential income of that bill on our community and how we might be implementing it or interpreting it. Regardless of the bill, we have a lot of work to do as a community. For example, to make ADUs practical and cost-effective, which was a key component of Senate Bill 1051. And we understand the Commission has made some recommendations to maintain ADUs as a conditional use rather than a permitted use. So our Commission recommended further that we reconsider not allowing ADUs as a permitted use, but consider making it a permitted use. However, redefine what acceptable conditions might exist or need to exist, and create a revised review process. The three things that we feel need to be focused.
Two questions from
Yes.
Councilor McKinney.
On the ADUs and some of that business there,
Right.
and then Truman, will we anticipate some code changes to be able to make some of these things happen more efficiently?
That's what we're, not to answer for Doug, but that is what we're proposing, that we consider changing code, altering the code to more clearly define what is acceptable so that we still don't have to go through the conditional use process.
And that's the key. It's more workable if it's
That's the
conditional.
way we understand it, that if
Alrighty.
we revise the review process and
Yeah.
update the code, basically, if I'm not mistaken, right, Doug?
Doug Rucks, Community Development Director. So if the question was in regards ADUs, thank you,
Mhm.
City Attorney, we're having commission discussions with both the Affordable Housing Commission and the Planning Commission. So Housing Newberg came forward with its proposal to basically say allow them as permitted use. You don't need separate utility connections. You don't need an off-street parking space. Conversations with the Planning Commission have some concerns with that. Discussions with the Affordable Housing Commission is, well, look at, do you need an off-street space or can you make it work with an on-street space? Yes, you should not have to have separate sewer and or water, in this case specifically sanitary sewer connections. Both groups have said some of the design requirements are antiquated and need to be updated and refined. One of the big things it all turns on in Senate Bill 1051, it uses the word allow, accessory dwelling units on all land zoned residential where you have an existing single-family home. So what does allow mean? Does allow mean permitted outright, or does allow mean that you could do it as a conditional use? That's something that both groups are going to have to grapple with over the course of the next month to try to define that as it comes forward to you later this year for your consideration.
So follow on.
Follow on.
We should not anticipate substantial code obstacles in relationship to this question?
Well, there are some. So accessory dwelling units, when you have a large lot, so if you go back to pre-2010 where you had 7,500 square foot lot size for R1 and 5,000 square feet for R2, and now today you have a 5,000 square feet for R1 and 3,000 square feet for R2, it's challenging to try to get an accessory dwelling unit in a backyard and meet the setback requirements. Then you've got lot coverage requirements that are in the code that we've got to look at. If you've got a subdivision that had no water quality requirements, historically, do they have to meet it now if they put in over a 500 square foot floor, impervious area, or not? Or is a water quality facility already sized post, when those regulations came into play, that can accommodate it or not? So it's not just as easy as, oh, do you have room in your backyard? There are other pieces that come along with it as well. And we have not overturned all the rocks on the beach yet to figure that out.
Continues.
You bet. So we identified ADUs as a key initiative for the commission last year, and we still have work to do. But those three things that Doug mentioned, parking on-site or off-site, utility connections, the how-to of it, and lot coverage ratios remain the focuses of any potential changes in the code that we need to address. Our group believes that those things can be worked through relatively easily, but need to be dealt with. So. The big news, or some pretty big news, is that we elected a new chair and a vice chair. And the new chair, E.C. Bell, wasn't able to make it this evening. E.C. is probably going to have a harder time dealing with the evening things. I'll gladly continue to help with that sort of thing as long as we create an ex officio position for me to fill, because I do hope to remain engaged. EC will be able to do all the morning activities, it appears. So E.C. Bell comes with extensive experience in organizations like ours and other public and community service, and is passionate about the cause. Vice chair was elected. Who's the vice chair? Steve, yeah.
Steve Comfort.
Steve Comfort, I'm sorry. Yeah. So we have a new chair and a new vice chair. So again, I expect to remain in some capacity, and I'm still very passionate about the cause, and want to continue on in whatever capacity I can to serve. So,
Councilor McKinney?
My question to the mayor was, can the mayor facilitate that ex officio position?
Mr. Mayor, maybe I can assist?
All right, see what the mayor's answer is. Thank you.
There you go. It's,
Mayor's answer is yes, staff who's here to assist.
There's your answer.
No, it would require changing the principles and the guidelines for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund itself, because it's within that document that identifies having the Affordable Housing Commission. So it would be a resolution that needs to be brought forward to the council to create an ex officio position. Then it's the mayor coming back to the council to identify who fill that ex officio position.
The answer is yes. It's just a process.
Figured as much. So we've got a lot of great things ahead for the commission, and hopefully the next level of the Affordable Housing Commission, and some exciting times ahead. Newberg has actually been fairly innovative with housing issues, and it's been a privilege to serve the commission and the community, and I'm not going away. So I just want to thank everybody for their support and for the past 6 years of fun and excitement that we've had. So thank you all very much.
Don't go very far, Stu.
No, we're not. I'm not going far.
Stick around real close.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll
Any
be
questions
there.
or comments for Ms. Brown?
Thank you very
None
much.
appearing? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Our budget committee. Beth, thank you for being here.
Okay, Beth Koshman, Budget Committee Chair, Mayor Andrews, City Council. This report will be short. We haven't had any meetings since last year and no meetings since the last time I reported. But I am looking forward to the upcoming budget season, which begins with our first meeting on April 17th. A city's budget allows the city to look at its needs and compare it to the funds available. This year, Newberg and the Budget Committee have some major challenges ahead of us, including how to pay for a $3.15 million upgrade to the public safety communication system and how to close the ongoing shortfall in general fund revenues versus expenditures. Some contributing factors to the shortfalls are the PERS rates going up, the 2% cost of living adjustment, and debt service payments for the communication upgrade. Because of these factors, Newberg will have to make some tough decisions. And I hope we get more people attending the Budget Committee meetings so they can better understand our challenges and options. And I think good communication and community outreach is going to be essential to advertise and increase attendance at these meetings. Despite our budget constraints, I hope the city will live within its means and not spend more than we make. I hope we can discuss essential and non-essential services and that our services offered correspond to our actual revenues. At the long-range planning meeting on January 9th of this year, city staff offered 5 options to raise revenue and decrease the operational shortfall and I look forward to seeing what is brought to us in the budget document. I want to thank the city manager and the finance department for all the hard work they put into creating a budget document for the committee. Also, there will be no city facilities tour this year as there are no new members of the budget committee. The budget document will be updated into a more user-friendly format and will have the 5-year forecasting ability to help us make decisions. And I look forward to seeing you at our first meeting. The three, two or three there.
With your mics, please. Questions or comments for Beth? I had to smile, recognizing your background. We don't want to spend more than we make. We don't make any money. So,
It's just my hopes for the budget.
yes, understood. So we don't want to spend more than we have in the way of revenue.
Right.
Exactly. I was smiling with you on that, because we don't make anything. Any other questions or comments? Councilor Murray?
Joe, is Rosa posting about this on the Facebook? Because I don't see anything on here. There's stuff on here about the water rates and the joint.
That's a question for Joe.
A question for Joe.
Thank you.
Mayor, no, we haven't started yet, so
Okay.
we will. I took it to remind myself tomorrow, unless Rose is floating around someplace here, so she'll be in a few minutes to start the campaign to get it out.
I think, to your point,
Yeah.
I think it's important for us to put it on Facebook, put it on the community discussion pages, to get people to come to the meetings, to understand that if they want a voice, then they want to ask questions, they should come.
Right, and there's a lot of big stuff going on. And so I want them to be part of it and hear it and see how decisions are made.
Beautiful. Thank you for your work.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Beth. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Rogers, for Citizens Rate Review.
Good evening, Mayor Andrews, councilors, city staff. I'm Rick Rogers, Citizens Rate Review Committee. All right, we held our public hearing last Thursday, March 1st, and to Councilor Murray's point, we had 3 people in the audience. Even though Rosa has been posting regularly, there was stuff in the paper, we had 3 people and absolutely 0 public comment. So, sorry for that, but it's what it is. What it did allow us was to deliberate that evening, and those rates, our proposal will be brought to you on April 2nd, so that's it. And you'll hear about them all then. But I did have one comment, and probably for Mayor Andrews, for putting together this group. Just so you know, on our group of, I think there's 6 of us, 8 of us, we've got a baker/business owner, a biker/mechanic, a Friendsview resident retiree, an education assistant, a home health professional, a high-tech wizard, and a nonprofit guy. To me, that's a fairly good cross-section of our community, so, commended there. And then thanks again to Matt, and to Karn, Jay, and to our consultant, Deb Garrity. Thank you very much, and you'll hear from us on April 2nd.
Any questions for Rick at this time? You don't want to get any heads up of what's coming at you?
Mystery remains. I wish we could say we were going to say no rate increases, but I'm sorry, that isn't the
Councilor
case.
Bacon.
Unfortunately, that's not the case.
You walked up and you said citizen, and I expect you to say citizen of the year.
Oh, no.
Congratulations.
No. Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you. I must say with that, with all of you all, and I've said this, each one of you could have won that award easily, right, for all that you do, and namely you elected officials, you don't get nearly enough praise for the time you put in, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Historic Preservation, Mr. Fieldhouse.
Well, good evening. I'm Rick Fieldhouse, the chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. Our big project has been, we're overseeing the work being done to get the Cameo Theater on the National Historic Register. We met with the architectural historians that have been doing the research necessary and essentially filling out the paperwork from ACOM. That's the consulting firm that's taking care of this for us. This is paid for by a grant from the State Historic Preservation Office. And we have a really early draft of that report that's not anywhere ready for public consumption because it still needs to have some fact-checking done and proofreading. But the end result, and I asked this very pointedly to the consulting historians, is this a slam dunk? And the answer is yes, this is a slam dunk. There are 4 criteria for getting something on the National Historic Register. A property only has to fill one of these criteria to satisfaction, and the consulting historians figured that the Cameo Theater meets 2 of the 4 criteria. The first being that the property is associated with events that have made a significant contribution to the broad patterns of our history, and the Cameo Theater, by being the oldest continually operating theater in Newberg, it definitely fills that, as it has a very important place in the community. What came as a surprise to us, because we already knew about the first criteria being filled, the surprise to us was the researchers felt that criteria B, that the property is associated with the lives of persons significant in our past. They felt that was satisfied by including research on Ted Francis, who was Newberg's premier theater operator for 3/4 of a century until his death in 1999, from 1926 to 1999. So they have done a considerable amount of research on Ted Francis and his role in not just Newberg but in the region as a promoter, as of the theater industry, as a significant figure in regional history. So I guess to sum up, again, this is a slam dunk. We have 2 boxes checked. We only need 1. And now the next step is the report will be finalized and then sent to the State Historic Preservation Office for review and approval. And then once it passes the state level, it will be sent to the national level for review and approval. Thank you.
What do you have backed up that we will be working on next?
Well, the next project that we are looking at, and actually 3 of our commission members, myself, Vice Chair Chuck Zickafoos, and Barbara Doyle, on Friday went down to Silverton with some people from the Newberg Historical Society to meet with the Silverton Historical Society and look at what they've been doing with historic plaques and markers. This is our next target we want to zero in on, is getting some of our historic buildings marked and basically increasing interest for people who are doing walking tours, for people who are coming in to visit the community, to inform and to attract people with some just attractive signage. We are still trying to put some bounds on what this would look like, what would the potential cost be. But this field trip to Silverton gave us a real good idea of something that works in a community.
Is this a joint project with the Historical Society?
Yes, this is very, very much so.
Do you have anything like Cameo or chapters that is on your to-do list?
For large projects like that, we don't have any anything right in the fire right now. There are some other things further out. There's still the discussion of whether we have the will and wherewithal to form a downtown historic district. That, of course, would be something that we'll really need to talk to property owners who it will affect the most, because it would put on some restrictions above what we already have. And finding out if that would be a viable opportunity for us.
Mr. Johnson?
Another community you might look into, call if not visit, is Baker City. They have a pretty expensive walking path and signage and of historic places, and I know that when I went out there and wrote about it, it was very, very interesting. So I can look into my notes and get you the contact information if you'd like.
I'd appreciate that.
Okay, great.
Wairika, California also.
Would that
Wairika,
be would that be a
California.
reimbursable expense if the
I will
commission?
not say that. Has there been, go ahead and write your note. Has there been any discussion on the part of your organization of where you want to fit in as a partner in any activity of murals in the city?
You know, the trip down to Silverton kind of reminded us of how that could be a good component of you know, essentially education, creating interest, and in a very much historic preservation. That's a little bit outside of our bailiwick, but since this is such you know, kind of a new idea that's come to us, we're definitely going to be discussing that at our next meeting. So,
Any other questions or comments for Rick? None appearing. Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you.
it very much. Library Board, Mr. Paul?
Good evening. Paul Headley, Library Advisory Board, Mayor, and council members. So for a long time, the library staff has assessed the need for a scholarship program for people living outside the city limits, and thanks to several generous donations, there's enough money that that program has been enacted, and the library has given the first card out under that scholarship program, so they're very, very excited about that. Along those same lines, there are quite a few people that come and that live outside the city limits that wouldn't qualify for this program, but are kind of hesitant when they balk at the fee. It's $40 for 6 months and $79 for a year. So the library's decided to enact a kind of try it before you buy it program, where they'll give out a temporary card that's good for a month that someone can check out up to 3 items to see, you know, what the library has to offer, and that way they can hopefully see the value in that. I mean, it's less than a Netflix subscription, and they have access to, there's over 2 million items in the CCRLS catalog for people to enjoy. So that should be starting soon. The library is gearing up for the Library Week in April 10th through the 14th. There's lots of exciting activities going on. There'll be an open house and greeters and introducing the Library of Things. Now this is, the Library of Things offers things that people can check out, like bubble machines and ukuleles and cake pans, things you wouldn't necessarily associate with the library, but that people, you know, probably wouldn't want to buy for one-off use, and you can check it out just like a book and return it. So that'll be exciting to see. There have been a few staffing revisions since we last spoke, where hired about 5 people on an on-call basis to cover illnesses and things of that nature. These are just the people that work in other libraries or not now associated with the library that would just come in on an on-call basis, and that's worked out really well given, you know, the flu season that we've all had, and that's a good thing. A couple notes on the Library Foundation. This is the 501c3 that supports the library. They had a an author event in November that was an outstanding success. Dr. Roger Newell from George Fox spoke on his new book that just came out, and they had a great activity there. Recently, a gentleman passed away that gave a $50,000 bequest to the Library Foundation. They're very excited about, and this kind of puzzled a lot of people because no one could associate him with the library at all. He just happened to put the $50,000 in his will, so I'm very excited about that. And the Library Foundation has given the library $18,500 for projects in 2018, and they're working towards building that endowment up. There's also another group called the Library Friends, which is another association that works with the Library Foundation, and they've given $10,000 to the library for 2018. And this is a volunteer-run organization that they make their money by selling the books in the library and by doing online sales of books that are given to them from the community. So good to have their support. And then the last thing I'll mention is that the construction projects are winding down. The carpet for the children's area should be in the library before the Library Week activity in early April. And then the downstairs, the circulation desk should be done in April or May. And that's all that I have.
Questions or comments for Mr. Paul? Councilor McKinney.
Question for Jay was when the carpet was ruined, did the insurance company bear some of the responsibility for the replacement of some of those things? Leah?
Leah Griffith, the library director. Yes, the insurance company is paying for a portion of that. The only thing we're covering is the deductible, which I think now is like $5,000 deductible. It's right around that. And the cost of replacing the carpet is close to $30,000. Because not only are they replacing the carpet, but the part we're most excited about is they're actually paying for movers to come in and move all of the books and all of the shelves. None of us were looking like we could do that again. Yeah, no. That was like $8,000, and the carpet is like $14,000. So the moving was almost, was a good-sized amount, and the insurance company, CIS, is paying for that. So we are very pleased about that.
Good. Thank God for insurance company.
Any other questions or comments for?
Could I just add one comment? When you said the Friends are selling the books, they're selling the donated books
Right.
that come into the library, not selling the books that we purchase. Just wanted to make sure that you didn't think we were pulling the books off the shelf and going, oh, why don't you sell this? Yeah, Bill.
Are you still taking donations from the public?
Oh, definitely.
Books?
Definitely. The Friends accept donations, and then they sort through them and decide which ones they can make more on selling online and which ones they can sell in the lobby. And we have
Or which ones you need to put on the shelf?
Or which ones we need to put on the shelf. We have a couple of very dedicated volunteers that come in every single day to manage the online sales.
I do have a question.
Councilor McKinney.
With a large gift like $50,000, how is that memorialized or commemorated in some way?
It goes into the foundation's endowment fund. It's not part of the city's fund their monies at all. It's in a separate 501c3 of the foundation. It's in their endowment. And the foundation has their own memorial board or donation board on the wall that it takes $20,000 to get on that wall. And so we will be moving that plaque and putting Mr. Smart's name on there. And like Paul said, none of us knew William Smart to know of any connection, but I think it's just having the awareness that there was a library foundation out there and that this was something he wanted to support. If any of you know William Smart, please tell me.
A good estate planner helped him out.
Apparently, apparently. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it very much. Thank you, Paul.
Yep.
Thank you. Any insights on our absentees?
Mr. Mayor, none, but I can come up and give you a summary on their behalf if we would like.
Well, yeah, you have 7 minutes. That's better than I do the public. We're absent the chair of our planning commission and the chair of our transit lodging ad hoc committee. So just a brief summary of what's going on there.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm done.
You're what?
For the transient lodging tax ad hoc committee, so they have been working through the destination development and marketing grant program that came before you back in January. They recommended 3. You recommended approval of the cultural center for the culinary enrichment, and for the Newberg Downtown Wineries Association. Contracts are now in their hands, draft contracts for both of those. You asked for reconsideration of the Wolves and People. That will be happening on Wednesday of this week. They've also been reviewing the small grant program. That's on your agenda tonight, so we'll talk about that later in the meeting. And the last thing is they've been having discussions with their marketing subcommittee, or through their marketing subcommittee, about a marketing proposal that's also going to be in front of the full committee on Wednesday night for their discussion and consideration. I'm not sure if they'll get through it in one evening or if it will take 2 evenings, but eventually it will get in front of the council for your consideration. On the Planning Commission, they did the review on the population projections that came forward that PSU had done, so you've adopted that. It actually goes into effect on the 7th of March. They reviewed and recommended on the Development Code Amendment for the PUDs for the private streets. You've reviewed that. That also will go into effect on March 7th. They've been having discussions about residential parking standards. So this goes back to primarily it's in the R2 area about on-street parking, and should they be required to have some? Should there be some? Does it impact block lengths? Does it only impact in areas on cul-de-sacs? So we got some additional clarity from them at their last meeting on that, and we'll be coming back for probably at least 1, if not 2 more work sessions with them on that particular topic. They've been talking about Senate Bill 1051, so the accessory dwelling units and these provisions for low to moderate income housing that's in that bill that's guaranteed for 60 years. And then the other piece of that bill is the one on property owned by religious institutions allowing housing. So they're in discussions on those components as well. And they've got a couple of items that are coming up for them for subdivisions, lot width requirements. So they've got a number of things that are going on. And they did provide a going away, kind of a retirement party, let's say, for Kathy Sturr, who was on the commission for 12 and a half years, and then for Steve Olson, who retired at the middle of January. So they had pizza. That's it.
Any questions for Doug on this one? Yes, Councilor Bacon.
Do you happen to know when the cultural center is starting the kitchen?
I do not. I had sent them a draft of a contract. We're going to be meeting next week and start to hammer through the details on all of that. I know that they're in their capital campaign program right now. They have some funds on hand, but they need to go out and raise a couple $100,000 more.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate it. We're also absent the chairman of our traffic safety, and I will try to play Doug's role here and fill in what little I can remember on the last traffic safety and where they are right now. One of the things that they have been discussing and will continue to discuss are issues dealing with parking on arterials and predominantly issues dealing with Villa Road and the curb parking or the street parking as that issue. They're also looking at just simply residential parking issues, not the same as what the Planning Commission is, but as to what is in the code now and how those are going. They're also looking at areas that maybe they want to explore in the issue of traffic calming or speed diet, road diet, that type of a concept. particularly now with the advent of the bypass being open, we're beginning to start having some of those discussions that they're doing it. And the last one that they have been contacted on, and I don't know how far they've gotten on it, is issues dealing with distracted driving and what they can do in an educational program locally for distracted driving. So that's just kind of a quick and dirty on where the Traffic Safety Commission is today. Follow on.
Truman, on distracted driving, does our force, or has our force issued violations? Have there been citations in regards to distracted driving?
Truman Stone, City Attorney. My office doesn't typically see the traffic citations unless they go to trial. But I have, just as I pay attention kind of to the docket, I have seen several. But that would be a question for the police department as far as how many tickets they get. Just anecdotally, if you go into Matt's office, which faces out on First Street, and you talk to Matt, but look out the window while you're talking to Matt, it is a rampant problem, and it would not be very difficult to, I think, really write a lot of tickets if there was a focused intention on
We
it.
need to deputize Matt. What, you have a follow-on?
No.
Thank you, City Attorney. Appreciate it.
Follow on, Councilor McKinney.
Councilor Murray.
So, my wife got pulled over a year and a half ago, and she got a fix-it ticket for, she was just checking her phone, but, the officer was very nice and wrote her a fix-it ticket, and she went and got a device for her phone to sit in, because you're allowed to, by the distracted driving law, you're allowed to have like 3 clicks or something. There's a rule about it. So they are out there enforcing it, but it would be a good question for the chief. And then they erase the fix ticket, and it's gone. But it's good for the community to know that.
You might make a note of that, Joe, for the next time that Brian makes a report as to kind of the status of distracted driving. Councilor Johnson.
When it comes to traffic safety, there's another thing I'd like to report, and that is the Wilsonville Road, the people turning around. It's still going on quite a bit. I work in Wilsonville on Mondays and Fridays, and every single Monday night and every single Friday night, I either see people pulling a Yui or cutting through the parking lot. So it's from the hours of 4 to 6, we could, really use some patrol out there, I guess. And, I know we're shorthanded, but it'd still be nice to see that, because it's still going on. Caught my boss doing it, so I gave him a lecture.
Councilor McKinney.
Where are they hanging this Yui?
The industrial park with the helmets, the company with the helmets and the fat graphics, and back in there, they'll turn right off Wilsonville Road onto Springbrook, head down till the Jersey barrier stops, the little bump, and then they'll either cut through the parking lot and pop out and get on the bypass, or they'll just go into the driveway and flip a Yui right there in the driveway and then turn to go the other way to get around, so they don't have to go over the concrete little barrier they put there.
Thank you all from our advisory bodies at your reports this evening. We appreciate it very much. Thank you for taking time out of your evening to come in and give us an update. We'll see you in 3 or 4 months, okay? Put it on your calendar. We'll see you also later this month at the Mayor's Cabinet. Okay, thank you. I have one item on the council business that I think we can take care of right now, and I'm going to look to you regarding the judge's evaluation.
So we won't be doing the judge's evaluation tonight because I didn't receive any evaluations from my fellow counselors except for the mayor and I. Well, we both did it. So here's the judge only works on Tuesdays. You should have gotten an email from Anna Lee. Yes. So
We all did.
We all did, yes. The judge only works on Tuesdays, so you have tomorrow and the 13th. If you can't do it those days, just fill it out NA. I need them to me by the 14th because the only day he is available is on the 19th. He starts teaching a class after that, so he won't be able to come on a Monday night. So if you could put it in your schedule, what time does court, does he get here? 9, right?
Yes, 9.
9, and they usually go until about 11:30.
So depending on the week, they usually go at least till 11, 11:30 or up to noon. And then if there are attorney matters, then they'll also have an afternoon session, but that doesn't occur every week.
Oh, right. If you haven't had the opportunity to watch our judge at work, it's a good experience. So anyway, if you could get them back to me by the 14th, so we could have our exec session with the judge on the 19th, I would appreciate it. Okay, so we have 3 out of 7.
So I don't have any experience working with the judge, so I don't know if it's,
If you have the opportunity to go to court and watch him,
okay.
I would do it because it is very valuable.
We use that experience to evaluate him?
Yes.
Just one time?
He's only here on Tuesdays, so pretty much.
For what you can evaluate from that experience.
Okay.
The others would be not observed.
Right.
Okay, not observing.
Mhm.
Right.
Tuesdays,
9 to 11:30.
9 to 11:30 here.
Here, in this room. Yeah. If you need a printed copy, I will be glad to give that to you.
Council President,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Mayor.
Yes.
I'm just looking at the docket for tomorrow. There is no afternoon session tomorrow.
Okay.
No
No afternoon
just the
session.
morning.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah. Do you have any questions? Just sit in the back and watch. We don't know exactly when the exec session will be because it's also the same day we're doing the session with the county. So we may come in at 5 and do it because it doesn't take very long, or do it between the work session and so he can get home because he's not local. Okay? Thank you.
Any other questions for Councilor Bacon at this time? All right. A couple of other items, we'll take them up later. But just for your information on the agenda, you've heard the canceling of the executive session for evaluation of public officials. And then we will only be having one exec session pertaining to real property this evening. And that will follow at the end of the business session. Okay? Nothing else. We are in recess until 7 p.m. Don, Karen, you want to join me for a moment? Counselors, take their seats, please. One more time. Counselors, take their seats, please. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Newberg City Council business session for March 5, 2018. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Mayor, all present, duly noted.
Thank you. Would you rise for a pledge of allegiance? Please uncover your hat. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are we ready for a proclamation? I think we are. They're gathered. Bring them in. I don't know.
No somersaults?
Thank you all for being here. This is one of the things that I thoroughly enjoy doing, and that's to recognize the achievements of people and organizations around our city. Tonight, in particular, a proclamation recognizing the Newberg High School varsity cheerleading team and declaring March 5 as a day in their honor. Whereas this year's Newberg High School cheerleading team, coached by Lisa Berg, received state recognition from Newberg High School and the city of Newberg. And whereas the team won its 6th consecutive Oregon School Activities Association Small Co-Ed Cheering Championship at Memorial Coliseum in Portland. And whereas the team finished as the highest scoring team at the meet for the 2nd year in a row. And whereas this co-ed team exhibited a lot of pride representing Newberg High School and the city of Newberg, dedicating many hours of practice and demonstrating tremendous athletic talent and skill. They symbolize the spirit of our city of Newberg and Newberg High School. And whereas the council wishes to congratulate the team members, along with their coach, for their outstanding performance at the state level. Now therefore, it is proclaimed by myself and the city council on behalf of the citizens of the city of Newberg that we proclaim March 5, 2018 as a day to honor the Newberg High School cheerleaders. And with this thereof, I set my hand on this and cause the seal to be attached this 5th day of March 2018. Lisa, you'll take that for that. And congratulations,
say 1, 2, 3, 5. What they do, but also for them, they are ambassadors for Newberg High School. They work hard, they work 11 months out of the year, and it is not easy to support other athletics and get support themselves. And they do a good job balancing both of them, and we would like to say how proud we are that you guys represent Newberg, and they do it very well. So, thank you guys, thank you for representing Newberg High School, and helping Newberg country.
Thank you. Recognition on behalf of the city, we'd like to give you our token of appreciation. And Don Sharon, I think you have something for each one of the two.
Sounds like there's a collision.
No, that's actually, that's what they do. I would not be that flexible.
Again, congratulations for your efforts. May I have the city manager's report, please?
Mayor and Council, Joe Hannon, your city manager. This is just a follow-up to what's in your email, as it is with the press and with the radio. Majority of the time over the last 2 weeks, it's just been in budgets. So that means meeting with each of the departments, going through their budget requests for next year. It's also updating how much they expect to spend this fiscal year and where we are in revenues and expenditures. And that's when Beth came up and describes the budget hearing, this is getting the recommendations ready for those public hearings. I will also presented the opening comments at a neighborhood meeting here, and that was to a group, about, I think, 5 or 6 of them that are from the neighborhood adjoining the public works yard, and this is to talk about the antenna that's being proposed to that site, to hear what their concerns are and see how we can mitigate any of them. We had the police was here, planning was here, also the consultants both from WACA, who's putting the whole plan together, and the engineers, and we looked at other options and told them everything we knew about it, and it is going to be a big structure, but kind of describe what we could do. Also attended a Chamber of Commerce, the board, their planning session, so they've lost their director. This is a time for them to step back and figure out what they want to do as a chamber, both in the tourism side that directly affects us in our contract, but also just about membership and the way where the chamber goes now as they search for a director in early summer. I know there's some folks here from the animal shelter. So at tonight's meeting, we had originally 2, and it was pretty enthusiastic or pretty optimistic if we could do both of them. But we're going to have a executive session that looks at the Butler property, and that's related to the communications upgrade. And then we were going to do one with the appraisal of the animal shelter. Where we've at is that we contracted for the appraisal, and the first appraisal, the first run through that, and this has been shared with the Friends Newberg Shelter, he's completed an analysis that looks at comparable sales. Well, there aren't a lot, and we knew that going in Newberg. So we have that one. Well, as we met with the board and their attorney, and also we looked internally, we said, well, if we didn't do it based on comparables, is there another industry standard for valuing a piece of property? And that's on a cost basis. So what did it cost to build it then and what it does now? So we've modified our scope for the appraisal. So he's coming back with a new appraisal Now, to realistically do this the best we can, what we need is a description of all of the improvements that were made by the animal shelter. We've given him all of what we have. We've also given some of the permits, for example, of an HVAC system. We'll go forward even if we don't get the information from the Friends of the Shelter. We're asking for that, and we hope, but we know we want to just keep this process moving along. So we've scheduled it for 2 weeks from tonight, the next meeting. So with this additional report, it will come out, and then that will allow us to do two things. One is see the value of it, and then if we get the other information from the Friends of what they specifically have spent on the shelter since they moved in and made improvements, then we can see what the mix is. So we've spent this much, they've spent this much, decide how that matches the total of what it's valued, whether it's valued less than what it cost us to build or more. But there'll be a ratio there. And it'll also give an opportunity, because we're required by law, you're required by law, to have a public hearing anytime we start talking about sale of a property and what the basis is of valuation. So that discussion plus an opportunity for Animal Friends or anyone else to come in and say, well, is this amount of money that was put towards the shelter, is that really a legitimate expense or not, or did you forget these kinds of things? So that will happen. First, you'll get the appraisal, and then after that, if you decide, we'll schedule a public hearing. Also met with the chair of the TLT, Dennis Lewis, and again, and Doug mentioned a little bit about looking at what now that the director is gone and they've kind of retrenched over their tourism efforts in marketing. And so it's what do you want to do on marketing? There have been a couple of proposals floated out that will eventually get to you. They're working their way through the lodging tax marketing subcommittee, which will go to the full committee, and then to you. And those are things like, should it be a person that does it? We've indicated we really do not want to have another city employee. There has been a proposal to hire on a chamber person that might do the tourism. There's been a proposal that says maybe a contract employee, that they're on a contract with us, but they may housed at the chamber. And then there's been another proposal, and this last week we spoke with the city of Grants Pass, which went through the same process as we did. They worked on lodging tax and on tourism, about the same amount of money that we have for 13 or 14 years, then decided they wanted to contract it out. So they now have a firm, it's a one-person LLC, that then hires part-time employees called Experience Grants Pass. And they do the tourism marketing using lodging tax dollars. And then in that town, they have two chamber visitor centers run by the chamber, or two visitor centers, one by the chamber and one by the city. So that may very well be a model for us to emulate. So we get that back to the Lodging Tax Committee, they vet it, and then it'll come to you. We've been discussing options about maintaining, enhancing, and improving the way we have trash cans in the downtown area. And particularly, this was generated by the trash right around Knapp's and the transit stop there. So we'll probably enhance, meaning increase, some of the pickups that we'll make, but we're in discussions with the transit about trading services, or saying, it's your stop, it'd be nice if you had some role in cleaning it up. And next 2 weeks from tonight, we'll have a work session with the county council. The first of 4 topics that night will be about transit. So this may come up during that discussion. We've also discussed, I'm sorry, Rick, our chair of the Historic Committee left, because we are working with the Cameo and 3 other individuals in the community about helping the Cameo either apply for different kinds of grants or do fundraisers to rehabilitate the theater, and really looking at the model that Chapters used of using grant plus fundraising loan money to help renovate the center there using Main Street grants program. We discussed with the Austins, and they're represented, the Springbrook development. This is really led by by Doug, excuse me, Public Works for some of the infrastructure, and the city attorney, and then the likely, or the person that is doing the due diligence, the firm doing the due diligence on the sale of the Springbrook property. So we're getting close. We have a number of issues that very well could come back for some council action within the next 3 months, 4 months, something like that. So more to happen. But we're pleased with everything that we've seen up to this point, and willing or interested in working with the city in partnership. We're about ready to, with the Downtown Coalition, publish a public art brochure that takes all of the art. This is really driven by the Downtown Coalition, but they've been working with us, include the library art, and we're helping with some of the printing costs for that. Later in the meeting, if you get Jay up here, he can talk about some notice that will start, that you'll see both on Villa and on Facebook and in the graphic about the project for the Villa Road reconstruction with the lanes and the bikeways there happening. That's happening begins within a month. So we'll get an update and let the people in the neighborhood and community-wide know about that project. We've also had some discussion, the staff and the mayor, regarding signage, and that also is kind of significant with the cheer squad that came in here of what are our options on the 3 city signs coming in of maybe supplemental signs, 1 or 2 that might recognize groups, and one of them could be a state champion cheer squad, it could be National Merit Scholar, it could be, the water polo teams, but Public Works and Russ has been leading that effort, get it clarified from ODOT, and soon we might have that back in front. And then you get to decide and get community input about, if we do have these signs, what might we put on those? And those could change periodically, too, of just recognizing kind of the superstars or overachievers that have happened in the city. We're also responding to requests that now we're the Camellia City. Well, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to put it as part of our branding? Does it go on our signs? So working with ODOT, we're seeing what we're actually eligible to do to the signs. Primarily, I think, will be on the columns that go out of recognizing Camellias there. But a lot more to come. It'll be part of a bigger effort that fits with community engagement and also the stuff you're going to hear tonight about downtown redevelopment and tourism, of how do we brand the city. So we have it up there on the screen right now. That's our Camellia. Well, should it be other places? Our cars, our, the pins that we give out and all that. Bigger discussion, but now what can we do right now? And the Camellia Festival is coming up for that. Also working with the VFW and the Legion and a few others like Anvil Academy to not about the banners, that was last 2 weeks. This one is now looking at options for potentially a service center in our community with getting as many groups as we can together to do that. A lot going on. Last one is just glass recycling. So just a reminder, if you look on your bills, your municipal statement, in there you've seen that there was notification that we're about ready to start a voluntary glass recycling program. So that will have, the first notice went out this month in the bill. There'll be notices on glass recycling cans, and they'll be delivered. There's 1 month free, and on those cans will also be a flyer that says this is a voluntary program. If the majority of people in town opt in or say that they want it, it works out to about $2.80 per month. But if you say, I don't want to do that, there's a number to call. Excuse me. And even responding to the bill that's out now, you can say, I don't even want it delivered to my house. It can call, and then this recycling can won't be delivered. But if it does, it'll be 1 month free, and then beginning charging people on their bills in the May bill. So there is a lot of things. And Mayor, do you want me to tell about the award that we have? That'd be the last thing, or you want to do it in your
You
presentation?
opened the door, go ahead.
Okay, well, the other one is up here, that's a glass, it's a very attractive award. We're one of a dozen cities in the state that have now gone over 60 years participating in the city's insurance system. So this is a collection of cities in Oregon that we pool for property, we for our liability, and for our medical services. And it's been very good for the city, and we're one of those, the pioneers have been around for a long time. Our nearest neighbors, Woodburn and Hillsborough, are also, but they're generally cities that are below 30,000 people. So, Mayor, that's all I have for tonight.
Any questions or comments for the city manager right now? None appearing, then we'll move on to council appointments. You have before you a motion to, and I'm going to make it as a motion to consent to my appointment for the committee members as listed on the executive summary. And that executive summary is the appointment of to the Affordable Housing Commission. It's a 3-member commission, and you heard earlier the discussion with Stewart, and I'm recommending the appointment of Mr. Larry Hampton for a term beginning March 5, 2018 through December 31, 2018. And for our Traffic Safety Commission, we do have a vacancy, and the Traffic Safety Commission, a 9-member committee with 1 student commissioner position, and I am offering for you to ratify my appointment of Leslie Lewis to fill the vacant full-time position. Leslie Woodruff, thank you. Leslie Woodruff to fill the vacant position on the Traffic Safety Commission ending December 31, 2018.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Do I hear any further discussion? The question has been called for. I hear no further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. None appearing. Congratulations. Thank you for being here, Leslie. That I messed it up. And Mr. Hampton. Thank you, Larry.
I hope Leslie can handle the packet.
They're smaller than the planning commission, so that's all right. I do have also, I am making a motion that you approve my appointment of committee members to the Newberg 2030 Citizens Advisory Committee. This is an ad hoc committee advising the staff, who in turn will be bringing programs to us. The original committee was dissolved, and we're reconstituting this advisory for phase 2 of the project. And I am recommending the appointment of the following members for the reconstituted Newberg 2030 Citizens Advisory Committee: Mr. Ryan Howard, Mr. Brett Baker, Mr. Sid Freeman, Ms. Claudia Stewart, Larry Hampton, Todd Engel, Brian Doyle, Lisa Rogers, Fred Gregory, and Kurt Walker. Second. It's been seconded. Is there any further discussion? The question's been called for. I hear no further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you very much. And with that, we will move to the area of public comments. And this is a time in our agenda where the citizens have an opportunity to address the council on matters relevant to the city and regarding items on the consent calendar, but not other specific items on the agenda for council deliberation. This section of the agenda is for a maximum of 30 minutes, but may be extended at my discretion. I would like to remind all citizens who have signed up to speak to the council that each speaker will have 5 minutes to address the council. Also, collective comments by an individual under this public comment section will be limited to a total of 5 minutes. It's asked that any requests for information the speaker makes be made in writing to presented to our city recorder, and we ask all individuals in the audience to avoid conduct that is unreasonable for the presentation for this evening for our public comments. I have 2 people signed up for our public comments area. If they would come forward when I call their name to the table, turn on the microphone. There's a silver to the right. Turn on the mic, introduce themselves, and proceed with their comments. And the first one I'm going to call is Sally Goddard on behalf of Unidos Bridgeting Community.
Thank you, Mayor Andrews and council members. It's a delight to be with you this evening because I have some terrific people to introduce to you. My name is Sally Goddard, and I'm the Executive Director of Unidos Bridging Community. We're a nonprofit organization that serves Yamhill County with a mission to promote the integration, participation, representation, and success of Latino individuals and families in the county, and also to build bridges of understanding among Latinos and non-Latino communities in the county. For 5 years now, Unidos, along with the Immigration Counseling and Advocacy Program of Lutheran Community Services, has co-sponsored a 14-session citizenship course during the winter months in Newberg. And this year, we're pleased that Portland Community College here in Newberg has hosted us to have the classes on their site. This year we have 14 students, 3 volunteer teachers, and 3 volunteer assistants. The students are preparing for their exam and interview with the United States Customs and Immigration Service with the goal of becoming naturalized U.S. citizens. Our course focuses on teaching U.S. history and civics so that they will be able to not only answer the 100 questions that may be part of their exam, but also to learn a little bit more about how they will be able to participate and become involved in the community, and this is our civic participation night. Students are motivated, curious, and persistent, and it's just a real thrill to be able to work with such students. This session's students are from 3 different countries, and their time in the U.S. ranges from 4 years to 40 years. So they've already been Oregonians for a long time. We're fortunate that they have a pathway to citizenship and have chosen to apply. They've been sponsored by family members, including spouses, children, parents. We also know that many immigrants in our county do not have a pathway to citizenship, and they too have lived in our county for up to 25, 30 years, but due to our current immigration laws, they're unable to apply. This is primarily because they don't have a parent, spouse, or child to sponsor them. So we think of the approximately 13,000 DACA recipients in Oregon for whom there is no law that allows them to work toward citizenship, and the thousands of our neighbors, co-workers, employees, and friends who are important members of our communities and workforce who neither qualify for DACA nor are they eligible to apply for citizenship. It's a difficult time in our country to be an immigrant. We continue to work toward comprehensive immigration reform, just state and local policies, worker protections, and safe and inclusive communities for all immigrants and their families. Our current class of students will celebrate their graduation from our course next Monday, March 12th at 6:30. We invite you to join us if you bring along a potluck dish, and we have a festive night of eating together and giving them a diploma of graduation. So in honor of these students who have come out tonight and who have participated in our citizenship classes, I'm going to ask them, if it's okay with you, Mayor, just to file quickly by here to tell us their names and the country from which they've immigrated. and then that will conclude our time.
It will.
Yes,
let's
it
do
will.
Let's
So
do it.
we'll go ahead. So if
So-
the students could come forward and just come right by here.
If you would, just hold the mic up so.
That's a
so
good
they-
idea.
They can just walk by. That'd be, no, don't pull it away from there. Just hold it up. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Roy Bill, and I came here in 1999. I've been here almost a little bit more than 18 years, and I'll become citizen, hopefully.
From where?
So, I'm from Oaxaca, Mexico.
Okay, thank you.
Mexico.
Thank you. And I know they would love to hear more of your stories, but because of the time, I'm just going to have you just say where you're from and your name. Go ahead, and you can stand up and line up here. We've got some great volunteer teachers, so thank you.
My name is Miguel Gonzalez. This come I here about 86 here, and I'm from to Pátzcuaro, Michoacán, Mexico.
Thank you.
My name is Amira Gonzalez. This de Michoacán, Mexico.
Hi, my name is Juana Piña Vega. Is de Mexico City.
Hi, my name is Maria Milera and came from Jalisco, Mexico.
Hi, my name is Juan. I'm from Jalisco, Mexico.
Juan also has a son at George Fox College.
Hello, my name is Hamid Mumtazi. I'm from Tehran, Iran.
My name is Heidi Amirgul. I'm from Iran.
Okay, and we also have students who are from Chile this session as well. And so I'm glad you got to meet each of them, and at some point I hope that they will be back here to let you know what they'd like to see happen in the city.
Thank you.
Thank you. The graduation will be held at PCC Newberg campus, 6:30.
PCC? Thank you. Thank you all for coming. To continue with our public comments, I'd like to invite Krista Eberly, Newberg Animal Shelter. Yes, we do.
Good evening. Krista Eberly, President, Newberg Animal Shelter. I just have a quick update for you. You all received this in email as well. But we have some exciting news to share. So as we've been talking with the City of Newberg as it considers the sale of the Newberg Animal Shelter building, it's made us realize the uncertainty that brings into our business. And we've decided that the best path forward for a stable future for the shelter is to buy the building ourselves. So we're very happy to announce that Ken Austin, our local businessman and ADEC founder, has agreed to help us fundraise, and he's agreed to match dollar for dollar as we go through this process. So we're very, very thankful and grateful for that support. So moving forward, we have lots of information on our website, and we'll have a more specific fundraising campaign that we'll be sharing more details about. So look for updates on our website. We do have our largest fundraiser coming up on April 28th, Wine and Whiskers. So that will be hopefully a wonderful event, as it has been the last couple of years. So we look to see you guys there as well. We'd love to have you. So we've been working with the city manager and the city attorney on the negotiations moving towards sale of the building. And we look forward to continuing that and seeing the appraisal and moving forward. So that's all I have for you tonight, unless you have any questions for me.
Any questions or comments for Ms. Eberly? None appearing. Thank you very much for the update.
Thank you, everyone.
With that, we move to the consent calendar. Pleasure of the council. Councilor Bacon?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
I think Mike beat you. We'll give that one to Mike. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the consent I have to referee it. We adopt the consent calendar. Is there any further discussion? None appearing. Do I hear a call for the question? Patrick beat you. Question's been called for. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. I'm going to have to check with Denise on that one. And with that, we now move to new business. And new business, we have a resolution awarding transient lodging tax small grant funds to the Hoover Minthorn House Museum, Hubert Hoover's Oregon Boyhood, home of the Hoover's Boyhood, an exhibit and marketing plan, Anvil Academy Newberg Grand Prix Cycle Cart Rally, Oregon Truffle Festival, and the Oregon Truffle Festival Newberg Weekend, the Terror of Truffles, and finally the Chehalem Cultural Center, the Newberg Camellia Festival Run and Walk. That's a mouthful. This is not a hearing. This is just new business. I do have somebody that signed up that wants to speak to us on an item here, so know that. But with that, then I'm going to turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Mayor. Doug Rux, Community Development Director. So this is our second round of solicitation for small grant funds out of the TLT program. We went out for one solicitation early in the fall. We received no applications, so we went out for a second round, which is noted in your packet. And that material went out on November 15th. We gave 30 days. Materials due by December 15th, 2017. Then we went through the evaluation process. So that process is basically applications come in, committee has charged me to go through, and it's in your packet. Did they submit the required information or not? And then we package it up. The first meeting, applicants are allowed to provide a presentation. So everybody usually does a PowerPoint. Then the second meeting is that the TLT Ad Hoc Committee scores and ranks and then discusses through each of those applications and comes up with a recommendation. So in this situation, we received 5 applications, as noted in your packet. So one from Hoover Minthorn, 2 from Anvil Academy for 2 different programs, 1 from the Oregon Truffle Festival, and then the Chehalem Cultural Center. Through the evaluation process, which I just kind of noted that occurred in January and February, the committee ended up making a recommendation to award 4 of the 5 applicants. So that is the Hoover Minthorn House Museum, and so that's the Herbert Hoover Oregon Boyhood, an exhibit and marketing plan. So yes, Mayor, it is a mouthful, for $2,500. Anvil Academy, the Newberg Grand Prix Cycle Cart Rally for $2,500. The Oregon Truffle Festival, Newberg Weekend, the Terror of Truffles for $7,000. And the Chehalem Cultural Center for the Newberg Camellia Festival Run and Walk for $8,000. So that comes to a total of $20,000. That's what's allocated in the budget for this small grant pilot program for this particular fiscal year. They chose not to award the cycle cart promotion at the IndyCar races. That request was for $10,000. Through discussions, I was not there, but I did get to listen to the audio, and chose not to go that particular direction. So in the parlance of being brief, that will conclude my presentation.
Questions for staff at this juncture? None appearing. If you would Step aside for a moment. I'm going to call on Mr. Brian Stewart.
My name is Brian Stewart. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I come before you today I publicly wanted to thank the committee, the Transit Lodging Tax Committee. It's an all-volunteer committee. They do a fantastic job. I think it's a very important job. They were totally receptive to everybody's presentations. I think it's new to us, obviously, and some other cities throughout the state have been doing it a lot longer. I think it's a growing process, and they are very open to dialogue on how we can improve that. And I think there is some dialogue we could do there to make it even better, a good program even better. But I definitely want to come out and publicly thank them for that. I wanted to bring some examples of what TLD produces, specifically for the Camellia Fest. As you may or may not know, this is our 10th anniversary for the Camellia Fest, which is quite an achievement, I think, for something that started in this building right here almost 10 years ago with a small little public gathering of 50 people or so and an informal bloom show, and has literally grown into something that's known statewide and throughout the country, frankly, as proven by us hosting a national convention last year. So that's pretty awesome. So I'll be passing some of these around and showing an example. The only thing missing is we have a wonderful program we put together this year that is literally a magazine. 20,000 of those will be going out throughout the state. 10,000 specifically will be in Willamette Weekly, excuse me. So that's very exciting this year. And that's read by a lot of people throughout the state. We also have a billboard that goes up in, I think it's March 12th, right across from Dairy Queen, that George Fox was gracious enough to let us to help sponsor with us. So that's very exciting too. And then the city of Dundee is gracious enough to let us promote the Camellia Fest throughout their town on the 4 banner locations that they have that are similar to the banners that we fly throughout town. So with that going on, that's even more exposure. And I think that absolutely meets the criteria, and I think the board did too at the TLT of drawing people throughout the state, putting butts in beds on off-season, and then more importantly, exposing Newberg to a lot of people that otherwise wouldn't see it. And it's built around what we are, our city flower, which is really cool. So with that in mind, I received some notice this week, the end of last week, from Fort Valley, Georgia. And that's where the American Camellia Society is located, and Macy Lane Gardens is located. And they have examples there of every camellia that's ever been registered with the American Camellia Society. We received our ACS, American Camellia Society, resignation number 3059 of Camellia japonica, City of Newberg. We are officially registered now as a camellia. I'd like to give that to Mayor Bob. So that's pretty much all I have. I just wanted to publicly thank everybody for their support over the years. The city's been wonderful, and the TLT committee's been wonderful too. So thank you. With that.
We are pleased to tell you, sit down.
Okay.
We are pleased to tell you that your cultivar listed below has been approved by the American Camellia Society for registration. Camellia
Japonica,
City of Newberg, ACS registration number 3059. You're welcome to read the rest of it. Thank you, Brian, for bringing this to our attention.
You bet.
And if you want to give the other information to our city recorder, she'll get it distributed
nice
to the staff. That way you don't have to sit
there
and do it.
There's plenty for the audience, too.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Denise?
Yeah. Brian, I was in this room with you 10 years ago watching your excitement on at the very first Camellia Festival. And no event ever can be as successful as this one without a champion. And you have been that champion from day one, and for that, I thank you.
Yes. I think we all thank you. Thank you again, Brian. Appreciate it very much. Mr. Rux?
Thank you, Mayor. Doug Rux, Community Development Director. So staff's recommendation is to adopt Resolution 2018-3433. As noted in this resolution, each of the grant award recipients would have to enter into a contract that will be worked on between myself, our legal counsel, and the award recipients, and the resolution authorizes the city manager to sign those contracts.
I do have a question, and I think Councilor Johnson has a comment or a question. Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, Doug. In the application for the Grand Prix, yay, it talked about a route for the race.
Yes.
Going along the parade route. And you mentioned that those cars go about 25 miles an hour. Is there a process to which we inform the neighborhood or get a permit, or how does that all work? Because my concern is I would hate to fund an event that in turn turns people angry and, you know.
I understand. At the committee during the presentations and discussions, it was brought up about what they were proposing is to use the Old Fashioned Festival parade route as the suckle cart route. During the presentations, it was brought up, is this the right day and is it the right route? Anvil Academy is working with the Old Fashioned Festival to work on this. So in essence, they would become kind of a part of the Old Fashioned Festival. So the Old Fashioned Festival then would have to be coordinating with the city about that parade route. And I will bring it up to staff internally about what kind of notification, and I will also bring it up with the Old Fashioned Festival or Joe Kemp, because he goes to those meetings much more frequently than I do, about notification to residents. And the speed when we're talking about, Rob said, you know, it's a maximum 25 miles per hour. There are kind of two different styles of these rally carts. There's ones that can go really fast that they do down in Arizona, and then there's the ones that go slow that are in the Northwest. Now, I don't know if it has to do with latitude or what, but they're different styles. And so the ones that they're talking about here are the slower vehicles. And so he had indicated they have a maximum speed of 25 miles an hour.
Looking at the requests, and a couple of these requests were not the full amount as the request went in, what was awarded. Will those still be able to move on their projects with reasonable success with these grant donations?
It's my understanding that, yes, the
Thank
project
you.
can still move forward.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? None appearing. Pleasure of the council. Councilor Bagan.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt resolution number 2018-3433.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt resolution 2018-3433. And for the guidance and the indulgence of our city attorney that verified it, I don't need to read the rest of the title. So you have a motion before you. Is there any further discussion? The question's been called for. I see no further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. I heard you that time. Motion passes 7-0. And with that, we move to an informational item on the transportation system plan review. You're doing this one, Doug? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Doug Rux, Community Development Director. So tonight is your update on the 2016 Transportation System Plan. So this is in line with all of the other presentations we're giving you on the 23 or so master plans that we have on the books, in the bookshelf, and implementing. So this one was adopted in December of 2016. Transportation system plans are good they're developed for a 20-year horizon. They should be updated every 10 years. We've been on that cycle about every 10 years going through that update process. As I've done with other presentations, I've included, in this case, Volume 1 of the TSP, not Volume 2, which is all the tech memos and so forth. Otherwise, it would have doubled the size of the packet. In the TSP, there are 5 identified or stated goals. Those were worked on with the Citizens Advisory Committee, which in this case was the Planning Commission with an additional member from the Traffic Safety Commission. And so what I did is I've done another plans, I went back and looked at the TSP. What have we accomplished over the course of the last year? What's its relationship to other master plans that are on the books? Is there any disconnect or modifications that might need to be done to the TSP or to other plans? So as noted in your report, kind of the big one was the Newberg-Dundee bypass. So Oregon Highway 18 was completed and opened on January 6th of 2017. So I can say that in City Hall, we immediately on day one noticed the decrease in truck traffic in the noise level in the conference room so that you could actually have a conversation and the building did not rattle constantly. The other piece that went on with the bypass, of course, is there is Phase 1W, which is the Wilsonville Road realignment portion of that. So that technically is part of Phase 1. So what we've talked with ODOT about is Phase 1 is open between 99 and 219, between Dundee and Newberg, but Phase 1W is still being designed. They are to the point of working on right-of-way acquisition. So our city engineer was at a meeting with ODOT staff in Salem last week on that segment of the project. And that will move Wilsonville Road to the south. It'll be intersect with Highway 219 about 900 feet south of Winooski Road. It may have a traffic signal in the future. They'll have to check warrants to see if warrants are met for that.
Is that Adolph Road?
Yes, it's a little portion of Adolph Road will become part of the new Wilsonville Road alignment. Other activities on the bypass, of course, is there was the $10.5 million savings from Phase 1 that was reallocated to Phase 2 for strategic right-of-way acquisition. ODOT has been talking with some property owners about that piece of it. And of course, HB 2017, coming out of the last session, $22 million to start design work for the next phase. And so that's kind of a big one, a new state highway in the community and other things that are coming along. So that all complied with Goal 1. The next one is projects that were done internally by the city. And as we noted, Elliott Road, south of 99, had paving done to it. We started the Villa Road improvements from Hayworth up to Park Lane. And then there was the paving on 8th Street as well that occurred. Council adopted the transportation utility fee, so that went through its implementation. So that's for the roadway maintenance program of that, and that's being addressed out of Public Works. So that was a lot of the work that Jay and Karn and their staff had put together in coordination with Council and the City Manager's Office. Regional Solutions, this is a reminder that we got a $740,000 grant. This addresses Crestview Drive, so from Providence Drive at 99, going up north and then over to the roundabout on Springbrook Road. So we're continuing to coordinate with Springbrook Properties and with J.T. Smith Companies on that.
I have a question on that one.
Yes.
The grant of that $740,000.
Yes.
Is there a sunset on that if we don't use it by a certain length of time?
Yes.
A certain date?
And that's what I was just getting to. I had communications with the governor's office, our regional solutions coordinator today, who was looking for an update of where we were at on that. And so our engineering department has put together engineering cost estimates. It's now on my desk to put together the narrative so we can get the information back to Business Oregon, to the Infrastructure Finance Authority, so we can continue on the contract document negotiations. Private development side.
The question was, do we know what the date is?
I do not have a specific date yet.
Okay, thank you.
Private development also contributed to the transportation system improvements. So we've noted Chehalem Drive. So this is with Gracie's Landing. They had to improve Chehalem Drive and North Valley Road. Subdivision that went on Columbia had to do improvements for that particular subdivision, plus the internal street. Hazelwood Farms, up off the end of Henry Road, Aldersgate area, they had to improve Aldersgate. some improvements to Henry Road. So we're getting pieces of the system that are being enhanced and improved. And then a little bit on Villa Road as well. We also put in here that the city has been communicating, working with Yamhill County Transit Area on updating their transit plans. So I've been providing information to Joe. Joe's been working with Councilor Esfin on that, so we have some ideas that have been pushed back or delivered back to the transit area for consideration. We've been working with Sports and Air Park on the purchase of development rights. So again, this is all in the transportation plan because it's not just about roads. It's about transit. It's about multimodal. It's about air. It's about gas lines, all things that move people and product. The downtown improvement plan and the strategic tourism plan, those identified the trolley. City management having conversations with a group of individuals about creating a 501c3, raising money, getting a vintage trolley, restoring it, and see if we can't get the trolley to run from the river at least to downtown, with the long-term goal to try to get it to run out to the Allison Inn. I've noted in here some continuity with other plans as well. Part of this really goes to our bike ped ADA plan, and so we've looked at it. That bike ped plan is old. It's one that does need to be refreshed, but we've got projects identified in there that are also identified in our downtown plan, or these segments within the downtown plan area. So if we can find and generate the $25 million we need to implement downtown plan, it'll take care of some of these bike ped improvements within the downtown area itself. Couple of things that are coming down the road. So we're working on the urban growth boundary expansion process. And so that could lead to amending the transportation system plan sooner than a 10-year window. City engineer and I talked repeatedly over the last couple of years about that. We're both aware. The other one is the riverfront master plan. So we're very close. Our contract is, our IGA agreement is still stuck at DOJ, so we hope to get it soon. Once we start that, it'll be about an 18-month process, and so we'll be looking at the transportation system, so it could require coming back and amending their TSP for that. And that's all I have on the TSP.
Hi, Doug.
I got my mouth full, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I'm your official question asker tonight. I'm assuming, because you are having the downtown master plan and the transportation master plan in front of us, that you're keeping in front of our mind the redesign of the downtown and the thoroughfare on 99. And so with that, I had some questions, if that's all right. Okay. First off would be, do you know that, are there going to be any official traffic studies done by ODOT on the amount of traffic going through our downtown core from before the bypass was opened?
No, I do not. I'm working on setting up a meeting with Lisa Nell, who's our ODOT representative now, but that's something I can put on their list, but it has not come up about doing that. Part of it, and part of that is, remember when we did the downtown plan, we identified that we want to have a special transportation area designation in the downtown. That will require additional conversations with ODOT, with their freight committees. We're trying to get alternative mobility standards in the downtown, which will lead to some additional traffic analysis. So however we end up working that out with ODOT staff, with Lisa and Terry, and who's responsible to do what, we had to kind of push back some of that work on those discussions because the person who was working on that retired. So
Here or down there?
Here.
Yeah, that's right.
When Steve retired, that was one of his projects.
Mayor.
So I've had to kind of delay.
Follow on?
If I heard this, did you ask were there traffic counts being taken before and traffic counts now? Is that what you asked?
Well, I was just, where I'm going with this is I just want to know kind of for my own edification and know how much work we need to put in for the future of downtown redevelopment, how that process is going to work and what timelines we're looking at and that kind of
There's
stuff.
some traffic counts that are being done out east and that was part of our agreement with ODOT. And so when we had a meeting with them, identified that. And so those traffic counts are going to be occurring in this month or next month. I think it's towards the end of this month, first part of April. Didn't want to do them in January and February because that's the lowest traffic volume month. We wanted to wait. And we also have to do it on a day that school's in session, so you don't want to catch it during spring break. But those counts were not in either end of the downtown area, to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah, but there were some already done, and those will be compared to now after the bypass has been open.
Follow on if I might, Mr. Mayor. And then with downtown plan, the road diet and the pedestrian, the lane reduction and the pedestrian amenities and all that, was the thought process, and I didn't see this in the plan, and I scanned it, so I'm sorry, but was that plan to wait until phase 2 was completed with the bypass, or were we going to try to do that as soon as possible?
As soon as possible, when funding becomes available, we can get an STA designation, deal with the freight mobility issues, and have a lot of conversations with property owners downtown.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Because remember, what it is, it's a road diet, generic term. It's removing one travel lane on First Street and one travel lane on Hancock Street, with caveats. If you're on First Street, you're still going to need...
As an initial plan.
As an initial plan.
Yeah.
What it is as you're going on First Street going eastbound, there would still need to be a 3-lane section as you come up to College because of the volumes making the left. If you're coming from the east to the west on Hancock Street, it would be 3 lanes up to College to address the issue of traffic volumes turning on Meridian and on College, so going to the university and up College. And then there's another segment where it needs to be 3 lanes at Main in order to address the queuing and stacking there. So it's not that everything gets shortened up, but the concept is it's 1 lane in each direction, except where you need wider to address turning volumes.
Okay.
Councilor Murray,
I had
Councilor McKinney.
I had a follow on to Councilor Johnson's first question/statement. So today I observed sitting on a park bench right out in front of the Guitar Center on First Street. And I swear it must have been for at least a minute or a minute and a half. You could hear the birds chirping. There was no traffic. You could actually hear, there was silence. And then, of course, the slug of traffic comes. So my question is there a way for ODOT, and I should have put this in an email, to modify the sign, the bypass sign? What I've noticed in my travels is that you come into town, and then it says bypass 15 minutes, 99W 12 minutes. There's less people getting on the bypass at that point. Is there a way you can put a buffer in there? Is that legal to put a buffer in where you can always have the bypass be faster? Because I mean, there's I'm kind of rambling, but
Councilor Murray, I will give you a personal observation, because I have to come down the hill every day, is one day when it was snowy and icy out, the route going down 99 through downtown was 11 minutes. The route going the bypass was 25. That was because the bridges were frozen.
Right.
And so the traffic was going very slow. We have a list. We've met with ODOT. We have a list of punch list items from the bypass. We've had issues come up about signage when you're coming from McMinnville, because it says Newberg's right, but it is saying about Newberg straight ahead. So we'll add that. I'll talk with Karen, have her add that to the list about the timing elements on the signs for the bypass in 99.
Councilor McKinney?
I can remember prior to you gentlemen joining us here that original estimates on how 99W would alleviate traffic downtown is that there would be a significant reduction in traffic downtown, except that in 7 to 8 years it will exceed what the present traffic was, even with the bypass bill. So, which was the emphasis being is that we got half a bypass, we didn't get a whole bypass. And if that, and we weren't even talking about road diet back then, all right? So the What might yet happen downtown is still kind of unknown, because the original estimate was in 7 to 8 years, downtown traffic would exceed what it was before the bypass. That's always perplexed me a little bit, but we need to energize the conversation to make sure that the bypass is completed, not only up Rex Hill, but 2 lanes each way as we're down there, to make sure that the bypass is particularly successful. I'm glad that the birds were chirping. I know that some of the people that live over in Dundee right after the bypass was opened down, they thought they were living in a ghost town.
Initial reports, and this is one I was going to bring up at the council business, but it's appropriate here. If you look back, what was the volume of traffic going through here on a daily basis? In the neighborhood of 36,000 vehicles a day?
I don't remember the exact number, but let's put it in a range of 35 to 40,000 vehicles a day going.
35 to 40,000, okay. You got that in your mind. The initial report that ODOT is advertising today is what they are averaging now, right now, are 12,000 vehicles a day on the bypass. So that means we've succeeded in getting a third of the people off of that. And of that, 10% are heavy trucks. That's their first study. They just released that to the Mid-Willamette Valley Act last Thursday, whatever, last week. So that's the first study that they've been doing. So in answer to the question earlier, yes, they are starting to do vehicle counts, and that's the first piece. Councilor McKinney.
What's been interesting is that 99W on a Friday sometimes was the most traveled route in the state. And at First and Meridian, estimates going through that intersection was 43,000 cars. And so that a significant reduction in traffic with the completion of the bypass. And of course, we need to keep working on the fact that we want the bypass to continue to work well for us.
That's all I had.
Anything else? Any other comments or questions for Mr. Rux? Very good. Downtown Improvement Plan Review.
So again, Doug Rux, Community Development Director. So this is your annual review on the Downtown Improvement Plan that was adopted back in December of 2016. As that refresher, we had the 10 big ideas. First Street, Hancock, East End Gateway, West End Mill District, neighborhood connections north and south, art, catalyst, development, civic corridor portion. So in this report, and I don't want to read it to you, but we hit the highlights of things that we've accomplished in the first year. So applied to the transient lodging tax program for some funds for wayfinding signage at the cultural district. Was not recommended. The East End Gateway, so I've been talking with hotel developers about the opportunity. We got the food cart that opened down on the East End. So Rick, so there's 5 of them there now. The goal is to have 8 at full occupation of that. GFU leased the 1 lot, so the vehicles and motorhomes have all gone away down on the east end of town now, so the visual appearance is much better. The West End, again, conversations about trying to attract a hotel downtown, conversations on the old mill itself and repurposing that as an artist space in some form and fashion. Habitat, of course, was part of that old mill complex. They've now moved out to Meridian, so there's some vacant space that's there. Talking with people about breweries downtown and distilleries downtown. So there's some opportunities that are there as well. We had budgeted this year to do talk with the property owners and about the comp plan zone change, traffic study to create that craft industrial. Again, unfortunately, with Steve's retirement, we had to put that on hold, so you'll see in the budget that rebudgeting those funds for next year. Does not mean that we're not having conversations, because we are. It's just where we wanted to be. We're a little behind. Second Street, so there's an apartment project for 20 units that are going in. We're talking about another office building development on Second Street. We had another conversation on an apartment building. Don't think that one's going to move forward. The PGE building that was on our historic resources, it structurally was falling down, so we had to authorize for that one to be removed. Hopefully something will refill that space. We've done a number of things with the Hoover Minthorn House, so we gave $1,000, the council awarded a $1,000 grant to do foundation work. We got some TLT money that was awarded to them for some signage to address the tourism portion. Up at the Cultural Center, the patio's done off the ballroom now, so they'll have that outdoor space for spring, summer, and moving into fall. Butler property, so we're working on the appraisal there. There's parties who have interest. Again, keeps coming up, hotel. Can we find a hotel to come into the downtown area? If anybody went to or read the chamber stuff, we gave a community enhancement award to chapters for the refacing of that building, bringing it back to near its original condition. And the Tesmer Emery building, the old Cancun, we're pulling off all of that fake front and re-exposing that, and they're working to try to find a restaurant there. Recipes, remodels going a little slower than anticipated, but they're moving forward with it. And I've already mentioned the trolley before and the TSP, but that's a piece of the downtown as well. And when we look at downtown, we got to look at all the other plans. We had to look at the TSP. Those were already in alignment. They were adopted about the same time. Water master plan, we know we have a line in Hancock that needs to be upgraded. We're working on the wastewater master plan. We'll see what comes out of that analysis. That's within the downtown area as well. And then I put some things again in here about downtown as it relates to the bike ped ADA plan. So that's kind of Main Street and Blaine Street. There's segments of those transportation corridors that need to have enhancements really to their sidewalks and their ADA ramps. ODOT did ADA ramps kind of from the west end of town up to Main when they did the overlay, but there's work that needs to be done in between. So that's what we were able to accomplish in year number one. Thank you.
Questions or comments for staff on our downtown improvement plan or plans? Thank you, Doug. Appreciate it very much. And we move to an item dealing with council rules. And I'm going to look to the city manager and our chair of our council rules subcommittee to carry this one, which is dealing with a motion to provide meals to the mayor and the council for our regular and our special meetings.
Mayor and Council, Joe Hannon, your city manager. I'm just the messenger in this case. It's really, there's a council rules subcommittee with the three of the members here. They've been dealing on a whole series of issues, and they can give you an upgrade or an update on that. This is one very specific one that's come out of the committee to come to the council for your consideration. It has to do with meals. It's tied into a longer discussion about compensation the time council is here, but the end result was a request that we basically bring back what we had here in the past, and that's particularly like nights like tonight. You got a work session, then you have a regular meeting. We're ideally being out at a reasonable time tonight, but sometimes it goes long, and you're coming, you or the counselors after you are coming from work. They can't get food. Sometimes we have dietary issues, people that just, you don't get any food, you're going to collapse on the dais, or at the worst, you're not going to be able to make good decisions. That's really the justification for this food, that you're able to do your job better. So that being said, we know we've had a couple of options. We can do hot meals, we can do sandwiches, and there's a whole series of people that do it for the price range at $15 per person per night. And so that information is there, and then you multiply it by the number of counselors that we have, the 420 times, 7 of us, so it's under 3,000 a year. And so the recommendation from the committee is that meals be provided to the mayor and city council at regular and special meetings at a cost not to exceed $15 per meeting beginning in May 2018. And yes, and particularly since the person who's probably going to be the biggest burden on this is going to be Sue and Dawn Karen working that, so we know that.
And so this is a topic, along with council compensation, that has continued to be raised at the Rules Committee. And so during those discussions, I'll just speak for myself. I'm not going to speak for Councilor Essen or the mayor. I just felt like since it kept coming up, it was time to raise it to the council level to find out what everybody thought, because obviously I'm going to have my opinion, and I think Councilor Essen has an opinion. I mean, everybody has an opinion on this. So the reason I supported this was simply to bring it to the council and see what y'all thought. So that's kind of, if the mayor would allow Councilor Essen to kind of give his.
If his light comes on.
Okay. I'd welcome that.
Councilor Essen?
Yes, just to give a little bit more expansive information about this. This came up as a part of a suggestion that our rules say that we get $10 per meeting. And so we do have 2 meetings. What qualifies as 2 meetings? We have the first meeting where we get information primarily. It starts at 6, which is the dinner hour. And then at 7 o'clock, we have a separate meeting. But when it was established, what was thought is, okay, people get off of work at 5, maybe don't have lunch time for dinner, so they come to a 6 o'clock meeting and they don't have dinner. And then they go maybe 4 or 5 hours, and, as it gets longer on and without blood sugar going up and down, whether or not we made good decisions or not. The other thing was the council at the time decided to forego $10 at the 6 o'clock meeting and have just $10 be paid just for the $10 for the 7 o'clock meeting. But what would happen is you would get dinner. So that would be, say, $10, and so we didn't have to pay $20 for the meeting. We only paid $10, but we got $10. That later was foregone as a gesture to the employees who were undergoing cuts. Subsequently, we have returned those cuts, included more pay, and we never returned the meals. So my suggestion was, if we can do it administratively, and my original thought was $10. To follow through on that, I talked with, as you know, we all had CPRD the other night, and we had dinner there, and I asked Don what that was, and he said, well, it's $10, but they buy, say, soft drinks and water by the case, they buy cookies by the box, and so it's just put in, and then they just buy the sandwiches, and that's pretty much how they do it, or salads from whatever, and that's how they're able to do it. The $20 concept is if we wanted to take all the pressure off of, say, staff and have it all delivered, and if you have your menu we're having with the county, apparently they have the same sort of thing set up. Their cost, having Bon Appetit on the menu that we had, their cost was $15 per box, and they're just able to order it in. So, but we have a figure of $20 that I don't know what did more than that, but apparently the county's doing the $15 one. I was just thinking $10, but, and it would be something that we could be included in our budget. But I know there would have to be some sort of adjustment handled by staff in order to make that funding available. And at the $20 number, I guess we're talking $4,000 or $3,000. So it'd be, if we went with the $10, it'd be much less, or the $15, it'd be about half of that. So whether or not that's something the council wants to do, that's up to the council. But that's what brought it to your, that's why the committee has brought it to your attention. We're trying to accomplish all those things. And, but wanted the entire council's input.
I'm going to have to take exception to one thing that you were saying, Councilor Essen. This, the city council never forgave or decreased any compensation going from what you're calling 2 meetings to 1 meeting. That has always been the rule that since I've sat on this council as a councilor and the years I've been as mayor, and as the rules read, that this is 1 meeting and we've been compensated. So the assertion that we gave up something and we made some kind of a change is wrong. I take issue with that. But the rest of it, I live with. But I do not appreciate the assertion that we gave up something which we didn't have. We never gave that up. It was $8 for an evening.
Right, but then
and then it went to $10 for an evening, and that was it.
Okay.
And our rules say that a regular meeting constitutes 2 pieces. And that's in our rules. And you've read the rules, you signed off, you know the rules. So we never gave anything up.
Okay, can I check with the city attorney on something? At the meeting, I asked, does that constitute 2 meetings under Oregon's meeting rules? Is it true that the way we're set up now, it is 2 meetings under Oregon's meeting rules? Not under our rules, but under Oregon meeting rules.
Before you answer that, my issue is that you're asserting we made a change. We have never made a change. Now, if we want to make a change in the future, that's up to you guys. But I do not like to say that we made a change.
Okay.
We have never made a change. Now to the question.
Truman Stone, City Attorney. Councilor Essen, in answer to the question, you asked whether under the Oregon Public Meetings Law these were separate meetings. And my analysis was, in fact, they were, because they're separate agendas, and we start a meeting, we conclude a meeting, then we have a separately agendaed meeting, started, concluded. But Mayor Andrews is, I think, correct that the council rules are what governs what's compensated. And so it's really a matter of the council interpreting its own rules on what's a compensated meeting. That being said, I did check with the Oregon ethics folks, and there are some ethics constraints on the council interpreting its own rule that would give a benefit, current benefit to council members. Now, if you ask my personal opinion about that, I think that's an over strict reading of the rule, but they're the ones who get to make that decision.
Mr. City Attorney and through Councilor Essen, I think the subject is not our compensation, the subject is meals tonight. Councilor Croy.
Yes, I just wanted to, you said you wanted opinions, so this is mine. I'm not interested in the meal option. I am interested in compensation, and I made it very clear when Sue sent out the information about the possibilities, I gave her that information. I'm not interested in meals.
Councilor Murray, Councilor McKinney.
I agree with Councilor Corey. I'm okay with reciprocating when we have joint meetings with CPRD or with the school district. They're paying for our meals. I think we can reciprocate to pay for theirs during special meetings. The fact is, we're volunteers. I have a 3-year-old daughter that I miss out on dinner time and bedtime to be here. and I want to have dinner with my family before I get here. So I'm not interested in the meals. I have a different idea. I also am interested in a different type of compensation, not necessarily at $10 a meeting, but we can talk about that later. But for the meals portion of it, I'm not interested, just because I'd rather spend time with my family.
Councilor McKinney?
Well, I come from the era that meals were always provided, and that's the way that it was on for councils prior to this here too. Now, I'm going to state this very personally here too. All right, is that quite often if a meal is not provided here, it makes it very, very difficult for me because I'm a diabetic. All right, so quite often, the day following a council meeting, I'm pretty screwed up, all right? Because blood sugars are real important. Now, when I say when I'm screwed up, I'll go home, I won't be able to sleep all night. The next day, my sugar numbers are just all over the place, and it's not. Now, I'm not the only diabetic on the council, all right? And when these budgetary concerns in 2007, 2008 is that we were making significant cuts, about $7,000, or $70,000, $70 million. All right, I'll just say that. We cut the budget by $7.2 million back then. All right, so. For myself, it's very important that proper nutrition always took place here, and when I came onto the council, that was very beneficial, all right? Because the times that I eat are more important than the volumes that I eat or whatever it is. So that it's there. Like I said, I'm not the only diabetic on the council right now. And when these budgetary concerns, took place back then, Mark Shelton sat to my right, and Bart Ryerson was on the way. They made the cuts along the way, and then Mark looked at me and he says, "I probably really screwed this for you." And he was talking about my health. All right? So I think that in terms of present council members and other council members in the future that are going to have meal issues, is that we need to be making some intelligent decisions here along the way. So I'm just going to tell you, not having a meal regularly at that particular hour or whatever, I really pay the price.
Do you want, Councilor Bacon? I'm going to give everybody a shot at this before we repeat. Councilor Bacon.
I would gladly vote yes on this. I won't be able to eat anyway because I have very strict diet, very, very strict restrictions, and I would not want to put Sue through that. But I certainly understand the needs of others, and that you would need to eat, and I could support this.
Councilor Corey, Councilor Essen.
I just wondered if there was any discussion or other options when you guys were in the Rules Committee, or was it just meals, or is there a problem with compensation of some other kind?
The question is for whom?
I think so.
Let's have the chair respond to that, shall we?
To be completely blunt, we've danced around the compensation issue. To be completely blunt, I don't think we have come to an agreement yet on what we are feeling that's going to happen. What we're doing right now is we're going through the League of Oregon Cities model rules for councils and seeing how they would fit into our current ones, if we should use them, if we shouldn't, those kind of discussions. And then the way I see it, and Scott and the mayor can jump in if they'd like, is that when we're in the end of that and we get the nuts and bolts of the rules kind of updated and cleaned up, then we'll take on these kind of, contentious issues to where we have some time to really dig in and go, okay, let's arm wrestle for it, or, however we come down on compensation. So while we have kind of danced around the issue, right now today, I wouldn't say that we have a clear agreement by the three of us as to what we want to bring forward on that. Do you think that's a fair assessment, Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Essen?
Yeah, I don't think this was an either or either. I thought we'd just talk about the meals, and there was some justifications there for that. I might mention that I've been having a problem with sugar, and I noticed that my mind shuts down about 2 or 3 hours into that. And I think you guys may have noticed it from time to time. And this has helped with the nuts to get me through the meals and stuff like that. I can't eat necessarily, and my wife would be glad to prepare meals for me, but I'm out and about and come back, and I've got a rush right here. And so we're 9 or 10 o'clock, and I just notice of all the things I miss, I think it's my mind the most, that it just starts to wander, and so that it would be a help for me. But that wasn't the only actual issue. Other things I guess I should bring up for the council and that we brought to Truman. Maybe Truman would want to talk about a little bit more. But I asked him, okay, if I heard at one point in the council meeting that Councilor McKinney would like us to put a $300 a month compensation on the table, and I think I've heard the same thing from Mike Corey. So I asked in the meeting how would that work, and as I understand it, maybe you could explain it even better than I could, the council can vote for that if they want. And what would happen is that or any other compensation that we would want to come up with, whether it was, well, you name the issue.
One more time, Councilor Essen. The question before us is a question of feeding us the meals at $15.
Right.
Compensation we can bring up at a later time.
That's what I'm
trying to say. And there are certain constraints that are going to be imposed upon this council in making any decision on compensation. And we can have the city attorney tell us about that at that time.
Okay.
But this is not a question on compensation. So I'm going to say where you were going is out of order.
All right.
Councilor Murray, Councilor Johnson.
As much as I respect the fact that there's special needs for food, this is a perfect example of where we can make our meetings more efficient by keeping on track and following Robert's Rules of Orders, asking questions during the question phase, doing discussion during the discussion phase, and not getting sidetracked. I think these meetings can be more expeditious, they can be faster, we can be more efficient with our time, and that may help with getting people home sooner for the time that we volunteer for the $10 a meeting we get paid. So I'm open to the idea of, like I said, meals during the special groups, or during the special meetings, but I don't think the taxpayer should bear the burden of paying for meals every single meeting for us, especially if we're going to change the way that we do compensation. So,
Councilor Johnson?
And just to give my point of view just on meals, throughout the valley during my career, I got to attend a bazillion city council meetings. And initially in the 90s and the early 2000s, everybody had a spread. And the question in the newsroom was always, do you eat or do you not eat? Because you're a reporter and you want to be objective. The later we got into this thing in 2005 and 2003, the meals kind of went away. And they were replaced with cookies or with coffee or with nuts or with snacks. And so this is something that I think a lot of cities kind of downgraded. And I can appreciate, more than you guys know, the need to keep that blood sugar level even Steven. And what I feel about this is that I think that, one, in a time when we're talking about doing cuts again or going out to the public again, in a time when we have staff who are here just as long as we are, we're not even discussing whether we're going to offer some sort of meals to the staff. And then do we offer it to, the committee chairs who show up and give reports? And The other piece of it too is that we have reduced staff at City Hall, and now we're going to ask them to order us meals, and in some cases, special meals. In some cases, I see there's a lot of issues with it. I'm not crazy against, I'm not crazy for. I just see a lot of problems with it, and what I don't want to have happen is have this issue turn into something that takes the focus away from we're discussing this now for however long, and we need to talk about what we need to talk about to fund a radio tower, and that's the piece of it that frustrates me. And all I can say is I work in Salem, I make the meetings, I get dinner almost every night before this, and I bring something just in case. And to date, I haven't seen the mayor gavel anybody for peeling a banana or opening a can of Diet Coke or having my bar explode here tonight. So, my bar exploded, but yeah, well, that too. But so I'd just like to say that I probably won't support this now just because I think it's not a fully thought out plan, and also I don't think it's the right time. I really don't. I'd like to see us get our budget issues in order before we start putting things back in. So,
Councilor Essen.
I just don't think I will be able to continue to serve the number of hours that is put into this if the council feels like my time isn't worth a meal to keep my blood sugar up. So I will be announcing my resignation within 30 days if this does not go through. And if it doesn't go through, I'm fine with it. But I just don't think it's right to the citizens that I try to serve with a 5-hour meeting and a 7-minute break when I don't think I'm doing the job for them. And it's not that it's, the nuts do okay, and it does keep it up, but I've seen myself, and I've got enough other issues, so I will be bringing forth, considering where I'm going to go with this, but it'll be formalized within the next week or so.
Councilor McKinney.
I'm going to speak my mind. It's not a matter of blood sugar levels. It's also insulin. It's lots of things. It's sometimes a month's worth of appointments to get yourself back and regulated along the way. It would be more productive for us if we changed the time of our meeting so that you didn't interrupt and create an additional health level or a health issue for the members of people here. And it's not only staff, it's everybody else here. Change your meeting to the afternoon so that you're not creating a health issue for people here or the potential of persons to serve here along the way too. So the nuts and the bolts of it for me, some of us at this table, we're in here into this for 10 years. Some of you are newbies, and the volunteer stuff, I don't know about you, but it's thousands of hours now. It's not dozens of hours or hundreds of hours along the way here. But some of you are young and healthy and don't have some major concerns, and it's kind of disturbing to me that you would make a decision based upon your own needs rather than the needs of the people around you. You're here to serve the community. I'm part of the community here too. We gave up this out of politeness, to the community here. But I'm sorry to hear that Scott would maybe think about resigning here. But for the life of me, I can't. There's no problem here. We've provided meals in the past. This isn't even a hiccup in the city budget. This doesn't amount to a hill of beans in regards to the city budget. Is this what, 0.1%? It's probably not even 8% along the way here. So I'm speaking my mind. Some of you are speaking for yourself but there's more people sitting at the table than just you. All right? Let's change our meetings to 2 o'clock in the afternoon so that we're concluded, we do things efficiently, and we're back down with our families and ready to go. If we have a special meeting or whatever, let's don't have a meeting then until after 7 o'clock so that everybody, can deal with it here. But, hey, life is real, and some of it involves more than just blood sugar levels. It's insulin and other medications that are part of the problems here. So this stuff about volunteer, I mean, we should be compensated for every meeting. Oregon makes provision for that. We'll have that discussion down in here. We're not asking for anything else. And other councils, you've read about it in the paper here, they've made recent decisions, about their level of compensation or whatever, and this other stuff. And I don't think that any of them are waiting for an additional year or until they're voted out of office to down there or whatever. This is a legitimate service to the community. We were elected to do this, all right? And it's not an extra perk to be able to do, to think about the citizens of the community would begrudge this, I think is a little bit, I don't know what to think of it. All right? I just know that tomorrow you create big problems for me. All right? They're health issues.
You have before you a question. Are you going someplace? There is a motion that has been prepared, meals provided to the mayor and the council at regular and special meetings at a cost not to exceed $15 per meeting beginning May of 2018, council meeting. That's the question before you. Pleasure of the council.
I so
Councilor
move.
Essen,
I so move.
it has been moved.
Second.
And it's
Point
been
of-
seconded.
Just a point of order with the motion, because it says 15 per meeting. I think it really needs to say $15 per person per meeting, because otherwise it's going to be a really tiny meal.
Is that okay with the maker of the motion?
Yes, that's okay.
And the second?
Yeah.
That's all right. So per person, per meeting, all right.
Didn't mean anything else in mind.
Is there any further discussion? I hear a call for the question.
Call for the question.
Question's been called for. Do a division of the House, please.
Councilor Essen. Councilor Bacon. Councilor McKinney.
Absolutely.
Councilor Corey. Councilor Murray. Councilor Johnson. Mayor Andrews.
Oh, I'm the swing vote, huh? Well, I really hate to see Councilor Essen leave, but I don't particularly care one way or the other.
About the meal.
About the meal. Yeah, I'm glad you qualified that. I'm getting tired, I guess. Low blood sugar, something, old age, whatever it is. We can blame it on to something. I have an idea. Those of you that do not want, and I'm just playing this out before I make my vote, those of you that do not want a meal can advise staff, don't get me a meal. Those of you that have to have a meal could have a meal. I'm not in favor of this, but I will vote yes.
Can I add to your idea?
You may add to it, but I did vote.
Well, here's another idea, though. That
You're not amending anything. You voted.
I voted.
So it's 4-3.
what if instead of having staff do it, they can turn the receipts in if it's under $15, so they can stop and get a Subway?
I don't have time to do that.
You're not going to take the time.
I can't. Their schedule.
You've got a 4-3 that approves the meals.
It's about what?
That's it, okay?
Yep. I'm leaving today.
You're where?
I'm going to,
You have not been excused.
please excuse me.
What?
Yes, you voted yes.
4-3, yeah, it was a 4-3. Under, you have,
Please excuse me.
all right. That's beginning in May by the motion, right? And under council business, Councilor McKinney, one question, you're not staying for the executive session?
No, sir. I'm going home.
Are you coming back sometime?
Next meeting, next month.
Goodbye. We do have a problem. Under council business, you had mentioned something about either Doug or Jay would do an update on the Villa Road, city manager, earlier in your report.
Mayor, I'll just send something out.
Okay.
We have a schedule of
All right, fine.
notice. Yep.
Is there anything else to come before us
I
on a
have,
regular agenda?
I just have one thing, and I'm sorry, I didn't.
You didn't tell me
I did not
earlier.
tell you.
Aha!
It is March 5th. That means you have 10 days until you can go in and file your SEI form. Hey. Okay, so that was it.
All right. Anything else to come before us under our regular business? We will be recessing, and we will not be coming back into regular session, but we do have an executive session dealing with real property under ORS 192-660 sub 2 sub E. Is there anything further to come before us at this time in our business?
I did want to say one thing, Mr. Mayor. I do apologize to the council for being out of order.
Go ahead.
No, I just apologize to the council for being out of order earlier. So, that's all.
All right. We are at recess while we clear the room, getting ready for an executive session.